This is the Pimax Crystal Super 57 PPD. This is the Pimax Crystal, and I've got a Pimax Ultrawide. You can't tell because this little module can change exactly which one you're using. And so I've had the opportunity to test all three and wanted to give a review. Full disclosure, Pimax sent me the headset and the modular replacements in exchange for a review. And if you decide to buy after watching this review with my promo code in the description, I do get a kickback. However, this will be an honest review because I think that, well, that's important. So whether you buy or not, here are my thoughts on the Pimax Crystal Super.
All right, everybody, shut up forever. Can we please just log on, or jack in, or cyber prance into VR? Let me just make the final adjustments. I can't wait to play all the most violent video games.
3, 2, 1, fight off.
All right, so what is the Pimax Crystal Super? They're all 3840 by 3840, regardless of which one you pick. The difference, however, is in the clarity or the field of view. The base model is 50 pixels per degree, and I've done a review on that one already, so we're not going to talk too much about this. But these other two, so the one that's in here now is slightly smaller field of view. It's 107 versus 127. And then if you go to the ultra wide, that is 140 degrees for the field of view. So we're going to talk about each one individually, but they are all high quality as far as clarity goes, just some nuances in between them. The ultra wide gives you 50 PPD and 140 degree field of view, which on paper sounds like a lot. And people say, well, this is good for dogfighting. This is good for racing cars, whatever, iRacing. And I tried it in iRacing. I tried it in DCS. I tried it in X-Plane 12. I've tried it in Microsoft Flight Sim. That is the test for all of these. The biggest thing is it gives you that peripheral vision and kind of gives you that wide look, which I think is wider than pretty much every other headset out there. The problem with the ultra wide is that because it's ultra wide, it now has a much higher requirement for your computer. In order to dial it in, it requires dynamic foveated rendering, which uses eye tracking, quad views through the Pimax Play software, and then also in DCS and the other games. I personally, and I will say this about all of them, I'm not a fan of foveated rendering, especially eye tracking and stuff like that. And the reason for that, as a fighter pilot, you're not always looking directly at what you're seeing. And by that, I mean, if I'm looking across the circle, it may not be that I'm visual and padlocked on a specific target. I may catch it out of the corner of my eyes. And what I found with foveated rendering is that it pixelates versus just kind of blurring. And it's very distracting. And I don't think it's tracking necessarily as fast as you would in real life. So I'm not a big fan of that. You turn that off, your performance goes down because it's such a wide field of view. So I think that's the downside of it when it works. If you had like a 5090 or a really high-end system, and I should talk about that. What system am I running? I'll put the information in the description, but I'm running a 4090 with a 9950 X3D, DDR5 RAM with 64 gigs. So it's not a poverty system by any means. It's probably fairly decent. But it requires a lot of resources, and it is tough to dial in. When it works, it's great. Having it in places in DCS that aren't real taxing on the system, it's awesome. Wide field of view. You can see everything. It's obviously clear because it's 50 PPD. It's a good headset. I just think it requires a higher end than the other two. My winner for this test is the 57 PPD model, and it is lower field of view, but you can't tell. At least I can't tell. I was able to turn off quad views, foveated rendering. And the other thing too, as a streamer or somebody who records videos, having foveated rendering is a mess. It just is a mess. You can't reuse the footage because everything is blurry. It has trouble figuring out where you're tracking. It looks great in the headset, but your repeater just looks like a blurry mess, and people get mad and they say, well, this video quality is terrible. And I agree with them. So just as a content creator, I'm not a huge fan of that. Of course, you can go back in and like replay the whole thing, which who wants to do that? Or you can via replay mode in DCS, harder to do in Microsoft Flight Sim. Microsoft Flight Sim actually doesn't have the problems as far as the repeater that DCS does. DCS just however it goes through OBS or whatever, it's just a blurry mess. And again, I am not a computer expert. I am not somebody that is real good at the tech piece of this. So when I do something, I want to be able to turn it on and it just works. So of the three, the 57 PPD gives you the highest quality image, and it was the one I was able to dial in the best with the highest frame rates, with turning off the foveated rendering in DCS, which for me was important, and leaving it on in Microsoft Flight Sim. Because my goal, and I know people are going to be like, well, this is your problem, but my goal was to have one setting that worked for all games. The problem with Pimax is it requires almost a PhD level tinkering, because it doesn't just work out of the box. You have to go to Pimax Play. You have to set everything up. You have to find settings. You have to find the user guides. You have to get it specific, and then you have to do it per game. I like having a one size fits all. If the setting works in DCS, it works in Microsoft Flight Sim, it works in iRacing. So I'm not constantly changing profiles or going back and forth or having to build profiles or anything like that. I like it just to work. And by the end of messing with the 57 PPD model, I was able to do that. Smaller field of view. It could use my 4090. Now, were there optimization problems? Yes. For the 50, the 57, and even the ultrawide, I don't know what it is, but I kept running into issues historically where Microsoft Flight Sim would go to like 15 frames per second and not use any GPU. I don't know how I fixed it, but eventually I fixed it, and it looks beautiful and it's working great. But just frustrating little tinkering things like that where you expect, hey, I'm going to put this in and it works. That's it. I'm just going to have it worked. Like I said, once you get it working, the 57 PPD to me is the best of the three, because realistically, again, if I turn off foveated rendering, the whole display is crystal clear. I like having the instruments be clear and easy to read, because that's what's important to me. I want to be able to look across a circle, and if I catch it in my periphery when I look, then it's nice and in focus. Yeah, it does make you move your neck a little bit more, but that's part of the game. Now, comfort and fit. So they also sent this foam gasket, the comfort foam, and it really improves the comfort level of this. You can see that the headset itself comes with a comfort strap. These are the DMAS headphones, which are very high quality for the speakers. And the microphone's also much improved than what it used to be in like the Crystal Light and stuff like that. So comfort is good. It is a little heavier than some of the other headsets I've tested, but not to the point where you're like, God, I want to take this thing off after flying in VR for an hour or so. So it is, and I know some of you guys do even more than that. So perhaps over an hour you might not. But as far as changing the modules, it's just 2 clamps right here, comes out. This one goes in. You are good to go. So it's a very comfortable headset, and this back strap actually makes it even better. Overall recommendation: if you are somebody that wants the absolute crispest, highest quality image, and you've got a high-end machine and you're not afraid to tinker with settings and you want to spend a lot of time with that, any of these three will be awesome. The ultrawide, if you've got the highest top-end machine, like a 5 series NVIDIA card, is probably the way to go. If you've got like a 4090 like me, note that I found that a lot of their settings on the website, you actually have to go down a little bit from what they advertise. It may be a problem with my card. I don't know. But to get the best quality, you take whatever they suggest, maybe go down just a smidge, and it works great once you get it going. But I think the 57 PPD version of that is the best bang for buck and the easiest to configure, which to me is what's important. Something that just works, that looks good, the quality is good, and it just works. In DCS, I was able to get stable about 72 frames per second, which this thing can run 72 upscale, or 90, depending on which one you're using. I think 72 is a good trade-off. 72 upscale actually looks good, the lab version, but I was running 72 with no problems. For Microsoft Flight Sim, about 45 to 50 frames per second, which I think is actually pretty good for Microsoft because it's not very optimized. And then X-Plane 12, I don't know. In no scenario could I get it to work that was playable. So X-Plane 12 as a game has a very high potential, but I never could get VR to work very well with it. iRacing, very stable. iRacing, I think the Ultrawide is actually your best bet for iRacing. So if you just do racing, the Ultrawide will lock in at whatever your frame rate is, 72, 90, and you will have better peripheral vision. You're not using foveated rendering. It's awesome. It is great. So I will say on the racing sim side, the Ultrawide is the way to go. But if you're just doing flight sim, I think 57 PPD is your answer. You won't notice, or at least I didn't notice, the smaller. I mean, if you do back-to-back, you might notice, but I did, and I preferred the higher clarity of the 57 QLED display. So that's my quick review on this. I know you guys probably have a lot more experience with it and Pimax, but let me know in the comments what you think. I think it has a lot of potential. It just needs to work better. The software is a little clunky, and all the different settings you have to do, to me, I think that's a VR as a whole problem. Other headsets have had different ways of tackling it. It's just, for me, I like it just to work. I don't want to spend hours doing optimization, and then you do something and it nukes the setting, and then the next thing you know, you're back to having poor frame rates after you finally got it fixed, and an update screws this up or whatever. It works one place, you fix it in Microsoft Flight Sim, and then you nuked it in DCS, or vice versa. I just want it to work. But I think overall, it's a great headset. Like I said, link is in the description. Promo code's in the description if you do decide to do it. I think they're coming out with an Air that is even lighter and may have OLED. So we'll see what happens with that. But it's interesting that VR still is not as off the shelf as I'd like it to be in 2026. But hopefully it gets there, because I think VR is the only way to do racing or flight sims. Fixed screens, it's just, I think I'd rather look from what I'm doing. So anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.